Good morning, everyone. My name is Eliza Aydar, and I've been a member of this congregation for about 5 years now. I was also elected as your youth representative on the vestry last year. I'm also heading off on pilgrimage to England in 4 months. Today I'm here to talk to you guys about our gospel. In the gospel reading, after his baptism, Jesus is driven out into the wilderness for 40 long days. 40 isolated and temptation-filled days. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but that does not sound all that fun. I can never imagine being alone in the middle of nowhere for that amount of time, especially in today's day and age, when being alone is a lot more difficult than we think. We are all constantly connected to each other through the best technology, our cell phones. With access to worldwide communication at the push of a button, it's hard for any of us to truly be alone. And yet, we have experienced some form of isolation in the same way that Jesus did. Maybe you went to college or another new school where you knew nobody. Maybe you started a new job and you didn't know if you could do it because you had no one there to back you. Maybe someone you really loved passed away. Or maybe you went through a tragic accident. But if you think about it, at some point or another, we will all go through a time in our lives where we have felt so distant from everyone else. Of course, I've had my own version of a wilderness not too long ago, and I really wanted to share mine, because I believe that every person in this room can relate to my wilderness. Not even 3 months ago, I finally got my driver's license, and exactly 3 weeks ago, I crashed my car. I was on my way home from EYC, out of all things, when I ended up hitting a tree. My car got totaled, but I was able to walk away. Now, although my situation didn't exactly last 40 days, and I wasn't physically alone, it was still the scariest time in my life, and it was still the most alone that I had ever felt. I felt like I was stuck in the middle of nowhere, and that nobody could help me. Although I was surrounded by caring family and friends, I didn't feel any different than I did the day before. For the next week or two, I felt like such an emotional wreck that I felt like I was still in the wilderness. I'm pretty notorious in my family for being the only one who can physically laugh and cry at the same time. And that precisely describes my past couple of weeks. I would put on a smiling, happy face for others so that no one could see that on the inside. My mood swings were all over the place. Sometimes I was content, other times I was anxious or depressed, but most of all, I was angry. I was angry at God. One night, I was lying in bed, and I thought to myself, God, how could you let this happen to me? Why did you let this happen to me? Now, if that sounds like I'm blaming God, it was just my natural reaction to something that happened so suddenly, and I wondered if I would be stuck in this wilderness for so long, all by myself. The next morning, I got up, and I looked in the mirror, and I looked at this long bruise on my chest from the seatbelt. And then did I finally realize God protected me. I could have just as easily left there in an ambulance, but I didn't. And I'm so grateful and so lucky that God was there to rescue me. But then I realized something else. My wilderness wasn't my accident, it was my being alone. God had rescued me from my isolation. Only after I had this awakening did I stop feeling so alone, because I now knew that God carried me out of my wilderness when I was too weak to do it alone. I wanted to read you guys a poem that I thought of when I was writing this. It's called Footprints in the Sand, and I'm pretty sure you've all heard it before. One night, I dreamed a dream as I was walking along the beach with my Lord. Across the sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed 2 sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one to my Lord. After the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. I noticed that many times along the path of my life, especially at the very lowest and saddest times, there was only one set of footprints. This really troubled me, so I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the saddest and most troublesome times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why when I needed you the most, you would leave me." He whispered, "My precious child, I love you and will never leave you. Never ever during your trials and testings. When you saw only the one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you." The reason this poem hits so close to home is because I have really been there. I have been in denial so many times about whether or not God is really there. But that is the farthest from the truth that you could ever possibly get. God is never, ever, ever going to leave you. We are all his children, and he loves each and every one of us. There is no place you can't go where he won't be with you, and there's nothing you can't endure where he won't be by your side, ready to carry you. Amen.